on him!
Welcome to Fish North Georgia the Guide. Here's Joshua Little.
Hey guys, Joshua Little here with Fish North Georgia the Guide. Wanted to give you a recap from the last couple of days that we've been up at Rocky Mountain PFA. We fished East Antioch both days. Wanted to really focus on that lake a little bit more. I've never fished it, so I wanted to spend some time out there. We started off early in the morning. Water temp was about 81, 82. And the biggest thing we wanted to do immediately was kind of get out and get a feel for the lake, see if there's any blowdowns, look at the riprap, look to see if there's any pallets or anything like that submerged, and kind of get a good layout of the lake to see where we want to start our first thing in the morning. When we started at the riprap, just kind of fishing it a little bit and throwing a DT6. And I was throwing a Helsinki Shad DT6, and this is the rod that I actually throw it on, and this is a medium power, moderate action. This is the Mojo Bass Glass series, and I've got it paired with a Corrado 200 HG series reel. The line that I'm generally throwing is going to be a 12 or 14 pound monofilament line. I can make really long casts with it, so that's the biggest reason that I like to use that. I go through the line quite a bit, so monofilament's fairly cheap. Switch it out pretty easily. But the DT6, you can cover a lot of areas, and with it being balsa, if you get hung up, you let the line get some slack in it, and most of the time it'll just raise back up and you just continue to pill on. The DT6 is probably my favorite crankbait to throw most of the time outside of the Spros, but just the action of it, the side to side, it's a good search bait, and it gets bit a lot. First thing that morning, that's where we got our first bite, was off of the DT6. We kind of continued out the day working the bank line and didn't have any success anymore other than about an hour later, and we got hooked up on the far end of the lake. And what I did was I was throwing a chatterbait, and of course this is the jackhammer and green pumpkin, and this has got a little paddle tail. This is a 3.3 Kitex. The color just goes great with the green pumpkin chatterbait. I really like the jackhammer. I know it's fairly pricey, but I've had better success with it than any other chatterbait, and it could be the bait or it could be the fact that I'm just throwing it more. One of the two, but the jackhammer is just kind of what I've come confident in, and I throw it a lot. The rod I throw it on is another Mojo Bass. This is a heavy power, moderate action, and this is the Rip and Chatter crankbait. And it's 14 pound fluorocarbon line that I'll use with it. They hooked up with it. It came off right at the kayak, but it was as I was burning the chatterbait. Come back to the same area a little bit later, hooked up on one again. Nothing major, 2.5 pounds, but let me know that is a bait that they were hitting, and they were actually they were chasing the bait. But the wind picked up. We picked up a spinnerbait, and we were throwing a spinnerbait, just kind of fishing into the wind all the way down, and had one short strike. Didn't have anything else on the spinnerbait, and once again, it's a bait that I'm really trying to throw a lot more. It's one that I don't have a lot of confidence in, but I'm trying to gain that confidence just by spending time with it. I ended up tying on a wacky rig Cinco, and just to see if we could get anything, and I did catch one, another pound, small one. So at that point, it was kind of a mix. They were chasing bait, but then they were also, you had some that were just feeding up against the bank, not chasing anything. But most of the fish were suspended anywhere from about 8 foot to about 20 foot. Just that range depending on where you were at in the water column as far as which side of the lake you were at. One of the other ways that we caught fish that day was dragging a worm. And this is just a 7-inch worm on a shaky head. And I've got it on a 3/16 ounce shaky head. This is an owner's hook. Biggest reason I like it is because it actually has a pinpoint right in the center of your actual shank or your spiral. So it just allows you to get it up on the bait a lot easier. And on a kayak, that's kind of probably one of the things that can be difficult is putting your bait on the line, putting your bait on the hook, just depending on what you're throwing. But throwing it on 14-pound fluorocarbon as well. And I've got it hooked up with a Cashin, and this is the worming rod. This rod is probably my favorite Cashin rod that I've owned. This is a kind of a do-all rod. I throw my wacky rigs on it. I throw a worm on it. I'll throw a frog on it, and I'll throw a shaky head on it. Just, it's a do-all rod. So, and this was one way that we caught them as well. Find where the fish are at, toss up, and just drag it across in front of them. You want to throw it up on either a flat or any rock structure, anything like that you could find. The next thing that we actually caught them on was the new Finesse series by Fish Head, and this is their 3/16 ounce underspin, and it's a small one. This is a 2.8, and this is a Strike King. I didn't have any of the smaller Kitechs, so 2.75 on the Strike King, but it worked. And I don't know if it was because it was something a little bit smaller profile that the fish were actually hitting on, because I was throwing a 1/4 ounce and even stepped it up to a 1/2 ounce and didn't have any bites. But as soon as we switched up, went down in the opposite direction, that's when we hooked up with one. So, and this is the 3/16 ounce. It's got a 1/0 hook on it, so it's a little bit smaller, and it works great. This is a spinning reel Bass Mojo, and it is a medium power rod. It's got a fast tip on it, 25-pound braid, and it has an 8-pound fluorocarbon leader, about 3 foot long, just enough to get the braid line out of sight of the fish. So if you're going up to Rocky, you want to focus on any of your main drop-offs, your rocks, if you can find the pallets, because there's submerged pallets there that they've kind of placed out there for good cover for the bass. And look for the areas where the fish are actually going to be staging close to a big drop-off. So if you're going from 6 foot and you've got a drop-off going straight to 20 foot, look at those areas, because the fish seem to be immediately outside of the drop-off. And I think what they're doing is they're kind of staging themselves early in the mornings. They'll run up, they'll feed, they'll come back down, and that allows them to stay in that cooler water. And as the day kind of progresses, if they seem to stay deep, you can try some other baits. I did try spy bait. I didn't have any success there. It's another one I've never thrown that there, but I figured give it a shot just to see. But I really think that your best luck is either going to come from either a chatterbait, an underspin, or even a shaky head. That's probably going to be your best bet if you're heading up to Rocky. So thank you guys for checking out Fish North Georgia. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for watching the guide here at Fish North Georgia. Our mission is to build a community of anglers to give you the best and latest information to make your day on the water more successful. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, click the bell so you'll be notified of any future content. Make sure you check us out at fishnorthgeorgia.com, where we carry a large variety of bait manufacturers from here in the North Georgia area. So we appreciate you being part of our community, and we'll see you soon.